Oh, and I'm alive. I think I'm live. Did I figure it out? Is it going? Whew, it looks sunburned. Is that how I look? Jesus. Why does anyone watch me? Something that doesn't quite get old about streaming is seeing yourself in the stream and being like, oh, I'm lucky I got married when I was pretty. Anyway, hello, streamy stream. I'm going to stream in this pre-bedtime ramble stream. Mr. Bird, glad to see you typing. I hope all is well with you. I heard you had a bit of a tumble, and I hope that you are less tumbled. Alex, hello. Thank you for joining Ramble Stream. I'm awesome at planning them and doing them, and yeah. But it was I figured why not. I'm trying to, since I don't have a video to put out this week, it seems like it would behoove me to put out something consistently. Not that I'm trying to like do the whole YouTube game exactly. Like, share, subscribe, get my numbers up. But I do want to try to be consistent. And so I got some filming done this weekend, but I did not, regrettably, get any video produced. I did help my daughter edit a video for her homework. So it's not true. I did make a video, but not one that is related to swords. So for chat time, hello, TSM is here. Hello. Hello, Will from Wyoming. My brother lived in Wyoming for a little while, for a hot minute. Get some cold temperatures over there. I was convinced that Wyoming never existed and that it was not a real place because nobody ever said hello from Wyoming before. But now, because my brother convinced me, and I mostly believe him, and because you said hello, I believe Wyoming is not just a hole in the map. It actually must exist. So I'm happy to stream and do really wherever the conversation takes us or wherever your questions make me babble. But I did say that I was going to answer some viewer questions in a QA video. I might save that. If there's no questions for the evening, then I might just jump on that and answer some questions I got from a member post if I run out of things to talk about here. But honestly, I don't have any plans. Swords and things. I'm working on some sword reviews, and it's taken a long time because it's cold. And I thought I'd get ahead of it this weekend because it was a little warmer, but then it snowed a lot, and then I didn't. So I went outside and I was like, no, I don't want to do it. It's too much snow. It's like big, sticky, heavy snow, and I didn't want to shovel it out of the way. And I didn't want to like lose the sword blades in the snow. I've done too much of it in the cold already. I'm just old and curmudgeon-y and not in the mood to futz in the snow with cold swords. And Samurai Bird, I see that you mentioned you're feeling better. That's good. I imagine like it must be like this much better instead of like all better because I don't know. I just imagine that it's probably going to take a little while, but I'm glad you're on the mend, sir. Little House on the Prairie might have been in Wyoming. I don't know. That I do remember watching that show when I was a kid, but I don't know where it was staged. That's right. Joe from Steel Forged and Fire, he too is going to bed soon. I'm an old man. If I don't get my beauty sleep, then I can look even worse than this. So I too will be probably short stream, planning on stopping sometime around 9. But as you know, I get to babbling and then don't stop, and it's not uncommon. It's a bad thing for me to set a time to stop because it doesn't work. And Will, your warrior katana's done well on the ice. I'm glad my warrior katana has not been bad. It's smashed a few other things and it's held up reasonably well, but the holdup was never really the complaint. I think there's some other concerns about value. Somebody actually asked me the other day, like, what does it cost to actually get a good sword? And well, good is relative and meaning a lot of different things, particularly to the people in this room that are very interested in them. There's been a few swords lately that have surprised me for under $500, and it's I think back to the Jakku Sino sword folded blade and the Ryan sword folded blade that I got, and I pushed them to failure, and either of them was very nice. One was a custom project, and I got to do all sorts of weird crap and got it the way I wanted, and it was under $300. And the Ryan sword felt like a really nice sword. It was very nice in the hand. I had compliments to say for it. It was a pretty thing. Dynamically, it was fun to move around. It's not that either one of them didn't have flaws, but you could do a lot with $500. And Cold Steel, getting roundabout to the warrior katana, is a little bit more than that, and I don't think offers the same thing. 20 years ago when that stuff came out, I think it had a kind of a compelling proposition. But now I don't know. It doesn't seem to add up to a lot of value, in my opinion. But if you like it, that's good. And it is a durable thing, and that's good too. So I think Little House on the Prairie was Minnesota. I'm not sure where it was. We can discuss Little House on the Prairie in this stream if you'd like, but I will let you know my knowledge of Little House on the Prairie is not substantial. Won't be a problem to wrap up at 9 if we talk about Little House on the Prairie. And Joe got a timetable from his Huawei sword after 11-month saga, maybe the end of this month. Fantastic, sir. I hope that you get it at the end of this month. They picked March. It's a long month, so we got time. I have to reach back out to Huawei. A long time ago, they mentioned that they would be keen on sending a review sample, and not that I want one before paying customers get their stuff. That's not cool. But they said the Chinese New Year before last that they would send one over after Chinese New Year. Now that New Year has come and gone twice, and I haven't gotten anything. But it sounds like they're still behind. So, and they're still probably selling well. So no sense in that. But let me know what you think. I hope you get it. And given that you've gotten the Skydrow piece, Joe, and you got the Huawei coming, it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on how you think those two pieces compare. I did actually get a review sample from Skydrow, and that's what I was out there practicing with today. I did a little bit of kata in the snow, and that was enough snow dancing for me, and it was nice. It was actually really nice. It still has a little bit of tension in the scabbard, which I can actually stand up and show you, probably because the camera will work. But it's nice. It'll be neat to compare something from Skydrow and Huawei. Wild. I think you said it's pronounced wild, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. Favorite type of sword to break? The next one. Honestly, like there's it can be fun to break swords. Sometimes it can be sad. The favorite kind of ones to break, I think, are ugly ones that like I don't mind. I would say like it hurts other people when I break swords. Hopefully not literally, but sometimes seeing somebody break something that you might appreciate, even if it's for posterity, doesn't mean that it's fun to see. But there's been some that I've been very loath to break, and those are the ones that aren't fun, and some that I don't mind breaking. Like I really had no misgivings about smashing the Musha tactical Wakizashi thing that I got sent. It was relatively inexpensive, and it was meant for, I don't know, abuse, so to speak. It was meant to be smacked around a little bit, and I didn't have any particular attachment to it, and so I didn't mind doing that. The ones that like I think back on breaking that I really didn't want to break so much, The Ryan sword, actually, that I mentioned a while ago, the $350 sword they sent me, I thought it was a really nice sword. It was nice. I would like to keep it and use it as a training tool or use it in class. And I said I'd break it. I followed through, but I didn't like that one so much. I'm probably most comfortable breaking katana, but that doesn't. I can't say I mind testing any particular type of sword over the other. But I'd say the ones that hurt are the ones that I would like to hang on to myself, that are fun to move around. Speaking of which, the Dark Sword Armory Alexandria was a fun one to move around. I thought that was a cool looking sword to hang on the wall or have around, and I enjoyed that one. I didn't like. There's probably a lot of them that I would like to break, though. As you might note, I have a problem. Oh, did I already lose chat? No, I didn't have back on. Okay. All right, where am I at? Said they're extremely backed up. So you're saying Huawei told you they were constipated? That's fine. It's a bummer that it's happening, but all too common with supply chain stuff. Melissa, Joe did a video on the. Yeah, I did see Joe's chat with Danny, or at least most of it. Mr. J, you're in California. Congratulations. I am in the snow. Yeah, it was like raining yesterday, and then it snowed a bunch here, and you don't have that problem in California. But I'm actually reasonably caught up with chat, and I have the Skydrow piece here. Oh, I got a little flash of belly there. You're welcome. I can give you a sneak peek of the sword. And it's held up actually pretty well. Even though I haven't done anything with it, it shouldn't not hold up well. But yeah, this is a great example, honestly, of Skydrow stuff. I think this is the Iron Warrior model. I'm not 100% sure on what these things typically cost. I'm speculating that this is like a under $500. They said it was something a little bit more basic. And really the only gripe that I'd have, provided it is under $500, it'll all be relative when I'm not prepared to do a review. I haven't thought about it enough, but I did go do some EI with it, and I brought it to class a few weeks ago and cut a tatami mat with it. Cuts really well. And the only complaint that I'd have is that it binds a little bit in the saya here. Somewhere down here, there's a little grab. Other than that, everything is actually pretty good. All the things and points that I would typically gripe about, there's a little bit of fraying on the ito, but it's reasonably tight. It doesn't rattle a lot, doesn't fall out. The tension might be a little rough. It has a slight bind where it catches on the sword before the habaki. Other than that, like it came without a bunch of saya rub. It came nice and sharp, suitable to do tatami cutting right out of the box. It has a nice folding pattern. It's subtle, but and I don't think it's going to come through in the camera. Let's try not to wipe the microphone. That's not going to be fun for people. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see it. Joe, I think you mentioned that yours was kind of soft looking too. This is that. And overall, it's, yeah, nice. And there's little things that I do like. There's no shirodome on this thing, so I didn't have to take them off. And they're not there. But you can maybe hear this wood. It's not finished very smooth, so it's causing the sageo to catch and fray a little bit. But very little to complain about in a sword that's, I'm not sure how much. That's why I have to research before I talk. But they did send a review sample. I have to send it back, and it doesn't suck. It works pretty well. It's fun as a training tool. It's a very good training tool, actually. I enjoyed practice with it, even though it was cold. There was a lot to appreciate in the sword. Sunny and warm, and what a hellhole. Well, I would be happy to review any sword that is sent my way, but I don't have an Apoc sword. I'm trying to recall if I've even played with many of them. It's my memory's a little fuzzy on the swords that have run through my hands, but I don't know that I could particularly comment even on how much I like the Apoc swords from firsthand experience. I see what they offer in print, and I've seen other videos on them, and I've heard people's remarks on them, so I can kind of make a third-hand guess there. But they seem okay for the money, though. I don't know that they seem bad, or that there's anything that inherently makes me afraid. Adventurer's Blade made a review on one of the Apoc blades, I think, and one example broke, and they replaced it. And sometimes you can get a dud, so it doesn't throw me off too much, so long as they take care of it if that kind of thing happens. Kamet does not have a purple wrap. It's a Turd Ferguson wrap right here. We got brown on brown. I understand black on black, but the Skydrow here is brown on brown. I think it's my lighting that might be throwing a purple hue or something to it, but it's a brown Ito and brown Samigao under here. That's why I call the sword Turd Ferguson, because it's a funny name. All right. I see a even swirlier Mitsudone. I like but I don't know what the name is. War sword to break must have been Anathar. Yes, Anathar was not fun to break. Anathar was painful. I didn't expect. I actually went back and I put a thumbnail on the video. Finally, I got some advice, and I've been gradually working back, trying to put thumbnails in some of the videos that I made. And I was trying to find, because I didn't take photos. At least I don't think I took photos of Anathar before I started breaking it, and I caught some parts of the video, and one of them was Anathar shattering in my hand, and and like pushing the resin that the handle was made out of into my skin and causing a little bit of blood. And I remember Anathar can't even be contained by Anathar. Yeah, that was not a fun sword to break. It was it was a dumb thing. It was a dumb thing. I wasn't sure what to expect. In fairness, I thought the blade would break or it would snap at the hilt. I did not expect the first problem to happen to be that it would break and shatter little bits of itself into my hand. That was unexpected. And it had really strange things that happened, like throwing it at a tree and the vibrations would cause the handle to bend even more. It was a quirky thing. But the blade actually held up really, really well. I used it to smack other swords, and it wasn't until I went out and very purposefully tried to break Anathar that it finally broke. It took quite a lot of punishment, because it was a relatively soft tempered kind of stainless steel, and it was a tank of a sword. There was a lot of metal there, so it held together pretty well. But that's a fair point. That one was not fun to break, but it was also fun because I made fart noises, and it was kind of for a gag. I was having fun doing the Anathar video. It's weird that April Fools. I suppose it's around the corner. I'll have to think of if the Anathar saga has a third chapter. Where could I possibly take it, though, right? All right. Hideous Phidias. That's a name. That took me a minute to process. Wondering your thoughts on sabers, and mainly reproduction sabers like scimitars. Looking for a nice saber, but no one really talks about the reproduction market. That's a fair point. So I have somewhere, where is it? There we go. Somewhere in this silver thing here is a windlass scimitar. I can't remember what that's not the name of it, but it's a curved saber blade. No distal taper. I was actually comparing it because one of the other swords I brought out and swung around was the one of the pieces from Sword By, which is also a saber, and much thicker, different. And I have somewhere back there a cold steel 1796 reproduction, which is a bit of a tank. And at least in the sabers that I have, it seems like the cold steel is probably the closest. It has a little bit more taper to it. It's heavier and beefier, but the windlass one is light. The grip is a little weird. It's not made for maybe it's a more accurate reproduction, but it seems like the cold steel one is actually maybe a little bit better saber, even though it's grotesquely heavy. I don't have an original 1796 to compare it to. On the back end of things, I've been looking actually for an original, so that even though there was some variation in the originals, that I could take an example of a historic piece or an antique and compare it to the cold steel version. But I just haven't bought one. I've seen them. I just haven't. They usually sell for like $800 or $900, and I just haven't mustered the will to buy a 1796 original piece for a comparison video. But yeah, I don't know much more about the comparisons there. I would venture a guess, though, that the sabers probably follow a similar suit to European style swords, and the build quality, at least from one company to the other, may be somewhat comparable. But it's a little bit underrepresented in the market. It seems like there's only a few manufacturers that do reproduction sabers in general. It's not a common thing. Rapiers as well, but sabers even to a lesser extent. There's not a huge amount of reproductions made, at least in comparison to Katana, or now their Chinese swords are becoming quite a bit more prolific as well, in terms of what's available for mass manufacture. But sabers, given the military history of them, people don't seem to show the same interest in reproductions. So I'm sorry I don't have a great answer for you, but eventually I'll get around to reviewing some, and hopefully that'll help. you search for yard work. Do you do the Christmas tree shaving for yard work? Some architectural landscaping. Recently picked up a cold steel MMA longsword and a cavalier rapier. I can't read today. Well, I can't read most days. Both made in India and good for the prices. Both surprisingly well made. They handle nicely. I do like the Italian longsword. I haven't gotten a chance to move it around. It has less endearing qualities. A lot of the leather on it is really loose, but I do like the balance and proportion of it in comparison to the other cold steel pieces that I've gotten to play with. It was one that dynamically didn't seem as chunky or just really bad decision, but the leather on it also feels like it's gonna rip apart if I put it under any heavy use. But those aren't the MAA versions, or is it Man at Arms versions? I can't remember what those are called. Wild Apoc sells a good game with that 9150 something steel. I'm a little lost on the Apoc stuff. I don't know the offerings as much. The tactical kind of things don't. Not that they aren't cool, but I don't invest as much time in looking at them in terms of what's available. Not that they can't be cool, but I don't know. Something about them doesn't inspire me to pay as much attention as I might do to other things. Mr. J, do I fish? I have not in a very, very long time. I used to hate it, actually. I detested fishing when I was a kid. I did it a lot. The family I had, there was a family cabin. That's this tradition in Minnesota. And we would go up north and go fishing. But I did a number of trips to Boundary Waters, and I live in an area with a lot of lakes. And so friends, fishing was a pastime, but I did not like it. And now, as an old man, having a beer and shutting up on a lake is nice. So I would not mind, but I have not done it in a very, very long time. It does have the right hat for that. I missed something. That channel, best katana scabbards that aren't glossy. So the finish is called Ishime, technically, I think. And I can't remember if that's like made with pieces of charcoal in a rushi or something like that. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but there's like the stone type finish is an Ishime finish, and I don't see that it's particularly well or traditionally done, I guess, in a lot of the Chinese swords. And I don't want to shuffle around too much. I have a few examples of scabbards. In fact, somebody asked me a question about scabbards, so I brought there's like all the broken ones and pieces that I have sitting out, and I recorded a video and it sounded really stupid, so I stopped talking. But yes, Ishime is the texture, and it's a little more stone washed or a stone-ish kind of texture, or brick or something, but it's not shiny, and it's a little bit more of a satin. But that's generally the color name for it is Ishime, or it has a texture to it, and it's not glossy. That it's not necessarily a color, because Ishime can be in a bunch of different colors. But best scabbard that isn't glossy for a katana, that's usually what comes to mind. But you can also just do like satin finishes on like a wood gloss thing. I've also seen some of the Chinese manufacturers have rattan wrap stuff. The example that I had from Jakku a long time ago was a fully rattan wrap scabbard, and it was in a more satiny kind of color. And they also come in glossy, but I like that one quite a bit. And I like rattan on scabbards because it makes it more resilient to breaking, and you could technically take the scabbard and smack somebody with it. And if it was wrapped in rattan or something else, it's a lot less likely to break, would be a lot less fragile. And further, it's a lot less likely to have your sword cut through it and into the meat of your hand while you're doing stuff. So Melissa, no, I do not have any more interviews with Lynn Thompson, and that was so much of a pain in the ass to edit. I was not particularly thrilled with how it is, but perhaps in the future, Lynn Thompson. I think their deal in making swords together has stopped. So I don't know that there'll be another revisit of Lynn Thompson and Steven Seagal. I'd like to be able to do it better, though, in fairness. All right. All right, Joe, have a good night. Have I handled Dao from LK Chen? Felt like the Double Dragon Dao from LK10 was way too... Yeah, I did see. So Joe put a video out about his kind of later experiences with the Dao he got from Jakku, and I had a similar critique that it was a little bit bulbous and not terribly lively in the hand in comparison. I haven't tested a New Way or a Willow Leaf Dao or anything like that from another vendor, so it's tough for me to really articulate if that's normal or comparable or what. My daughter likes to roll downstairs and then not shut the door. So the long and the short of it is that I don't know how heavy they're supposed to be, so it's really tough for me to critique if it's good or bad or right, wrong, or indifferent. But I haven't tested one. I've handled Dao from LK Chen because that just means single-edged sword, and I've handled a number of them from LK Chen that were that, but not any of equivalent shape to the type that you're talking about. I would like to, though, and so hopefully they will send me some more samples of other types, and I will swing them around, and it'll give a better basis for comparison. The other thing I thought is that the handles were a little too chunky. All right. Cutting branches and blackberry bushes faster than some. Yeah, that's fair. Swords can be good for that. Garland, if you had a chance to review the Fei Long Higo, I remember I did a review of the Fei Long Higo. Did I not actually use it? I thought I swung it around. I haven't used it much, so I still have it. I've debated selling it, but but the person I bought it from was in a bit of a spot and didn't particularly want to sell it. So I thought I'd leave the option open for him to get it back. But it's been a minute now, so but I don't mind the sword. It's just short for me, and it's pretty, and there's not really any complaints that I would have about it. At least none that I didn't address in the video that I put out. But I would say that it is likely a fine performer. No, I can't recall much of any cutting specifically from it, though. As a practice tool, it was all right, and I imagine it's an okay cutter. But yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that. Crazy Engineer, is a horseshoe good to make a knife? I don't know. It would all depend on what the horseshoe is made out of. Some horseshoe, if it's made out of a steel that's applicable to knife making and the knife maker knows how to use it, then I would say sure. But I don't know if that's a common metal or not. And I don't know. In the making of things, I'm not so great at telling you what is a good material and what isn't. And I don't know if I've practiced or used or smashed anything made out of old horseshoes. So I don't have a whole lot of useful information to provide you. But if they're made out of steels that are used in knife making, then I don't see why they couldn't. But good might be rough. I'd have to imagine they don't want them to rust or something like that, because I usually see horseshoes and they still have a pretty nice sheen to them. So that would tell me that they're, I don't know, dubious. But not an expert on that, to be clear. I really have no idea. Cold Steel makes a saber. I think they said you can kill a car with it. Well, maybe. The 1796 is a beefy saber. It is more or less a leaf spring from a car. So it would not surprise me. Havoc. I have 3 Albion swords and want to store them away for a long period of time. Can you please make a new maintenance sword video? Thank you. The short answer to that, yes. I don't know that it will make a new video because not much has changed. The old one is still applicable. But what I can tell you is I still use CLP. I have not changed off of that material. It's held up pretty well and done a good job. Albions are notorious to keep clean. But if you want to not have them out and you want to store them for a long period of time, coat with CLP, and then you might take like saran wrap or something like that you would use to store food and wrap it around the blade and fittings to the best of your ability. Do a nice thick heavy coat of CLP or your oil of choice, and then wrap that saran wrap stuff around it, around any of the metal parts, and that will be good. You can leave the leather exposed. That's not subject to rust, but any of the metal parts, if you put that saran wrap stuff on them, any moisture or anything like that, it also kind of keeps the oil stable and whatnot. Not that I've had problems, but they still do rust up there. And I find little pits and things like that on them sometimes. They're very challenging to keep clean. But if I wrap them, if I put an equivalent of a sword condom on them, then that would likely mitigate some of the dust and stuff that falls on them. And so if you're going to store them in a safe or someplace where they're closed up, you probably won't have that problem. I have the Conan swords in the boxes and things like that. So I have 3 Conan swords. I coated them with oil, and if I store them in the box and don't take stuff out, then I don't see the same type of rust issues as the ones that sit up on the wall on display. Those I have to clean a little bit more regular. But anyway, yeah, it's the same thing, just saran wrap it. So that's something that I would do some sort of plastic wrapping around it, wrap it around tight on any of the metal parts, and that'll probably be your best bet, and a nice thick coat of oil underneath that wrap. Crazy Engineer, do I recommend a good hatchet for deer hunting? I am useless when it comes to hatchets. I don't know much of anything for a hatchet. I haven't played with very many of them. I've had a few tomahawks and pipe hawks and things like that, and I can't say that I've had anything that has been overly impressive, honestly. nothing that stands apart as particularly useful or good, and especially when it comes to hunting. Are you talking about like separating hips and chopping bones for that kind of stuff, or is it more of a camping implement? Because like a hunting knife would probably be more applicable if you're trying to get bones out of joints and things like that. I know a lot of people use the 119 or the 120 for like separating bones and things like that. But if you're talking about butchering and things like I can't say that I have any recommendations for you, just a little outside of my field of expertise. But if you show me one, I could maybe look at it and tell you if I think it's a good or bad hatchet. But I don't have as much experience with hatchets and axes, frankly, to compare and contrast them the same way that I do with swords. I have some, maybe more than a normal person, but still, I don't know that I could give a confident and worthy recommendation. Mr. J, yes, fishing is great. Some keepers are 6 feet long. That's a big fish. Minnesota does not. I haven't ever caught a 6-foot fish. There's, I think, some sturgeons or something supposedly in some of the lakes, or some relatively large fishes. But I have nothing come close. I usually get skunked when I fish too. I don't. Maybe it's because I'm fidgety, but I don't have a lot of luck in fishing, which is probably why, as a young kid, I didn't like it very much because it was low action. But just sitting on a boat and drinking basically is what I'm saying I like. And if there happens to be entertainment of a fish, then all the more, all the better. Alex the Hat was that's right, Turd Ferguson. I lost my train of thought on there. TSM, did I see Matt Easton's video about choice of swords in the apocalypse? I did see it come up today. I watched a part of it. He had some critiques about he had some good points. I guess I'll leave it there. Do I have one? What about his video, Daily Defense? So I can answer, but I will preface with I'm not an expert. I throw my back out if I sneeze too hard. I'm not a tactical expert in any way. I have musings and opinions, but I don't like really take them with a grain of salt, right? so there's that. I'm not a soldier. So all that it's pure hearsay, and the blind leading the blind here. But I'm happy to share my thoughts with that context in mind. I wouldn't necessarily disagree. I think in one of the videos about the apocalypse side of things, he noted, what would you take right now? And that maybe you'd want to take an Albion, but do you have a Kydex sheath or something with modern materials? Do you have a kind of kit prepared for the apocalypse? Or would you want to take something that you could readily wear and carry with you at a moment's notice? And so for me, I have my favorite sword that I would like to take. That's very sentimental, but I don't know, like a katana doesn't necessarily fit well in more modern attire. It's not easily wearable with most things. And it's, I'd be tempted to take one because it's what I've spent a lot of time training with and I'm very familiar with it, but I wouldn't be in attire to properly utilize that training. I couldn't move it around, I guess, in the same way. And further, katana require a reasonable amount of maintenance. So they wiggle and things happen. And I don't know if in an apocalypse scenario, if I will be in a place where I can fitsy futz or will have the tools to shim and yada, yada, yada. So I would probably be more inclined to take a shorter piece that has less maintenance and that is a little bit more of a mix of a tool. One thing that I've talked about a few times, and I haven't mentioned it in a while, but I have a Gnunting that was made by John Ledemo, and I had the Mystery Man in Black make a handle for it, and he made almost like a Japanese style Filipino handle. It has a slight curve to it to have a little bit of retention. There's a peg in it. It's very different than other Filipino weapon handles. A lot of the handles that I see on Filipino blades they tend to be more round and harder to index, and this one is a little more narrow and a little bit more akin to like the feeling of a bokin. So that would be my oh shit weapon. And for home defense, it's not really much different. It's kind of sat beside the bed for a very long time, and it's small enough that in a house or indoor area, I wouldn't worry as much about smacking into the ceiling or something like that if I was, lost my frame of mind and was delivering wild swings. And it also gives me enough reach, not so much that I can reach out and touch the other person easily with pokey stabs, but enough that it balances indoor stuff and doesn't require a lot of maintenance and can kind of be used very aggressively. It's a pretty utility based blade, and so something like that would probably be more what I'd be after. I don't have a scabbard for it though, so if the question follows like, what do you grab from what you have that you can wear, I'd be a lot more limited. A lot of the European swords and stuff that I have don't have scabbards with them, so I'd have to figure something out pretty quick. I'm not exactly even sure, honestly, out of what I have in terms of what I'd take. But anyway, that's some food for thought. I do think it's fair to say that if like a lot of people have said about what's the best katana for home defense, it's not a very good weapon for home defense, frankly. It's very long. You can whack your ceilings unless you live in a house with very tall ceilings. And they require maintenance and things like that in an apocalypse scenario. Handles wiggle, habakis wiggle. They require shimming and futzing and cleaning, and that might be more than you want to deal with. It certainly would be more than I wouldn't want another thing to worry about if I was also worrying about the apocalypse. But general answer would probably be, I really like the balance on some of the shorter Gununting style pieces. A wakizashi wouldn't necessarily be bad, but I think I would prefer the Gununting style piece. Java Man, so much sword envy. Yeah, it's a little out of hand. A little out of hand. Little bit. Will I be reviewing bayonets and spears in the future? I do have a Nagi to chat through. Spears, I would like to. They aren't a very commonly made item, and when I've requested them for review samples, I haven't gotten any in return. So I'd be happy to, but I don't see it happening very likely. And bayonets, probably not. Probably not. A big component of the bayonet, I would imagine, is the firearm that it would attach to. And yeah, I don't know. It's part of a weapon system that I don't feel qualified to really critique very much. As a separate item, I certainly wouldn't mind evaluating it on its merits as a standalone swordy weapon thing. But it's, I don't know. Matt Easton, he was mentioned earlier, brings up a good point about evaluating arming swords and not the accompanying shield. And so in a similar way, I could talk about bayonets, right? Where it just has to be known that like the other half of how you move them around is missing. Java Man, have I ever messed around with zombie tool stuff? I did have one review. It was the wakizashi version from Zombie Tools, and it surprised me. I've kind of been on the lookout for a good deal on Zombie Tools stuff, and they just tend to sell very close to their original asking price, and that doesn't. Yeah, so I haven't picked any up. I haven't found a thrifty deal on one in a while, but I did have a wakizashi some time ago, and it surprised me. I've handled a few of them as well at various events, and they typically are lighter than I would expect them to be. As a zombie apocalypse tool, that is not a bad way to go. They typically come with like a Kydex style sheath. They don't require a lot of maintenance, and they're a little bit overbuilt, but not to the point that they're obscene crowbar pieces. And I think reasonably highly of them. I think they kind of live the mantra out there that they're going for as an apocalypse kind of tool. They're very very well suited to it, and they have a unique look as well. I think a lot of Zombie Tool stuff. I've been very pleasantly surprised especially because I didn't expect to like them when I got it. I thought it would be a heavy, stupid, tactical bullshit, clubbish, brutish, stupid thing, and it wasn't. It was surprisingly well made. I was surprised that the balance was a little bit favoring the heavy side, but not grotesquely. And I just expected so little, and was very pleasantly surprised that it turned out to be a very nice product. And so if the other swords that they have are similar, and I'm guessing they are because they seem to have a high resale, and that doesn't always mean that it's a good product, but generally it does. So a lot of people must like the stuff they put out. Getting behind on chat already. How do people have all the swirls in their name? That is the membership thingy thing. So I have a member thing, and the members get the swirly Mitsudomes in their names. And if you've got a buckaroo, you can have one too. Members. And I'm surprised. Thank you to the member folks out there. If anything, the swirly Mitsudome next to your name means that either A, you wanted to give me $1, or B, you spend your money not necessarily the most wisely, because I put out a member thing and it was like, I will give you mostly nothing, but thank you for the $1. And the folks that have the swirly Mitsudome next to their name very generously gave me $1 with nothing in return. So that is what those are. Do you have any upcoming projects with the Mystery Man in Black? Garland, I'm working on finding some more, but none at the moment. I don't have anything in the works just yet. There was an opportunity to get a Howard Clark blade in the an L6 Katana, but I don't think that's going to work out. That would have been a kind of a cool project, but in the back, but I don't think that'll pan out. And there's the My Little Pony Katana, but I have yet to move much further than the ideation phase of that. But more to come for sure. It's been, I don't even know how many that I've done. There will be more in the future. I just don't have anything in the pipe right now. Mr. J, I've made spurs out of horseshoes that look nice. Yeah, I'm not sure what utility the horseshoes have. I'm not sure if they're recycled or what happens. Have I ever had a tachi? Yes. I've had a few of them, and I've wanted to make another one. I have a set of fittings to make a tachi, and I've wanted to do it, but I haven't found the right blade to fit the fittings because they're pretty small. And the curve on tachis, at least for modern made pieces, is usually fucked, where the handle and the blade don't have a natural curve, which doesn't allow the sword to actually have a more narrow scabbard and draw and sheath properly. So it's tough to do a project, but I've had an idea for one for a very, very long time, with the nice brocade Ito and stuff on the scabbard, but I haven't gotten a chance to actually do anything about it yet. But I've had a few of them, and most of them have been modern pieces, and they're neat, but basically it's just a zazzy katana. I don't necessarily seek it out, and there's not a ton of them on the market. There's more or less, if you can get one now, they tend to be katana fittings in a tachi, or tachi fittings on a katana, rather than something that's a little bit longer and something with a different type of curve. And I get why they're not made, because the scabbard and fittings and stuff for them are an enormous pain in the ass. Speaking of underrepresented historical weapons, Sam Johnson, I wish I could find a really good budget ancient Celtic sword. I don't know if I can help you on that one. Is that the Sam Johnson I think it is? It's my brother's name. Celtic sword. Nope. I'm not. I know there's a few of them. Chris Cutler used to make one. Traditional Filipino Weapons, I think, even made a Celtic leaf blade thing. I could be wrong on that one. Maybe it was Gen 2, or maybe both. But not a particularly well represented, and not one I've spent a whole lot of time on. I don't know that I've even had one. And I don't know if the Bronze Age swords fit. That's kind of the closest that I can think of is the Bronze Age stuff that comes in a leaf blade. But if you were looking for a steel version, drawing a blank on that one as well. At least for a good one. Nothing stands out as like a particularly, ooh, it was amazing kind of thing. But I'll admit I'm not as attentive to the reviews on the Celtic swords. There's a lot of swords that I miss the mark on, or that I'm not as aware of. Sabers and Celtic swords. You've exposed my weaknesses. Gene, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. I like your videos. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoy them. Java Man, yes. Take the sword condom and may it protect your swords always, especially your Albions. Protect them from the dirty rust virus. Garland, how do you feel about others copying your swords? Example, the Zatoichi you reviewed. I'm not bothered. More or less. No, nope. Nope, I'm not particularly bothered at all. If I have a project that somebody likes and they're inspired by it, I don't know that I've ever actually seen anyone just straight up copy it. I've seen spammers and scammers take the photos that I've made and try to sell items that were from my photos, like Pakistani sword salesman or something like that on eBay, try to use my photos and do that. But they weren't actually copying it. There wasn't a sword behind it, obviously. And I've seen people send me photos of Swirly Mitsudome-based swords that they have had made that might have been inspired or themed on something that I've done, but not an exact copy. But if somebody did, I don't know that I would really be bothered by it. I'm not. The reason I like the sword personally isn't because it's the only one. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would be bothered by it in the slightest. I just hope that they they liked it. The Zatoichi one though is also it's a good example because like it'd be kind of a dick move if I was bothered by it, right? Like I'm copying something from a movie or like doing something inspired by this character in a movie, and then if somebody makes a similar project, then I get bothered by it. It'd be kind of a dick move, I think. I hope that more people make Zatoichi stuff though too, because it's really popular. I am surprised out of swords that I've had that have surprised me in sales. The Zatoichi ones stand out as shining examples. The first Zatoichi blade that I got, I thought I was totally boned. I didn't think that I would have a sword that would sell. And I not that I mind Zatoichi, but I didn't want a Howard Clark L6 kind of money tied up into a Zatoichi type of sword. And it sold really quickly. And so did the Rick Barrett people example. And people still reach out sometimes and ask about either one of them. There's a lot of fans of that series that are very passionate and want something beyond what's on the market today. So if they're employing craftsmen in the field to make that cool stuff, I'm especially flattered that I could maybe even show that's an option. And if you have the money and desire to have something really special made based on the character or film or whatever, that's a possibility and hopefully worth it. Robert, hello. Spears for apocalypse. Spears for the apocalypse. Spears would be a reasonable thing for the apocalypse, for reach. I do have a cold steel spear head, but I've never attached it to anything. That might be something that I could work on spear review wise, because I think you can get it. And I try to review stuff that is applicable, that you can actually buy and use or get something like. Robert, like zombie tools are virtually unbreakable. I've seen the folks on there, do some pretty crazy stuff. As a side note, a long time ago, I did reach out to Zombie Tools and ask for a sample. I would like to push one to failure and play with it more. I just never really materialized. But yes, I think highly of their products, as I noted. Havoc, I'm worried about the Russians, about Russians I'm worried more about Russians and zombies these days when it comes to using my blades. I am also worried more about Russians and zombies, but I happen to be married to one, so she worries me greatly. Robert, the amazing thing about scabbards, so awfully expensive they are. They're certainly worth it, but they don't come cheap. They don't. They don't. None of them do. Yeah, there's some companies that sell scabbards at a pretty reasonable rate. Dark Sword Armory comes to mind as one that has pretty decent scabbards for the swords that they offer. How accurate they are to the time period may be a different question, but they're reasonably well made anyway. But yeah, any kind of custom scabbard is a pricey thing, and that's actually something I haven't personally had done. Matt from Matt's Great Hall, or it used to be Everything Medieval, made a scabbard for me for my Albion Mercenary, and I really like that one. But that's the only like custom scabbard that I've ever been quasi involved with, and it was made as a gift from Matt Hall. I still have that. It's very special. Other than that, I've had some custom scabbards that I bought with other swords, but I haven't really had one made. I also took a look at one that Swordfriend Saeed made. He did some pretty elaborate leather working and stuff like that. They can be really cool on the European swords, but I've never actually commissioned one like the Japanese side of things that I've done a few times. Originally, you were going to sell the Rick Barrett Mantis. Have you changed your mind on that? No, it is for sale. If you're interested, you're welcome to shoot me an offer, but I just have been lazy. I took photos of it and didn't get around to selling it on eBay, but it's going to get listed up. Just pure laziness. That's it. That's it. I will sell it. It is fun to move around, but I'm not in any particular rush. The other thing that I'm kind of hesitant on doing is I got it when it was really cold, and I don't take listings down in the super cold months, but it does bother me when it's really cold outside, and the lacquer especially is fresh, because the only time that I've ever had lacquer break or swords crack was when it was like 20 below. But the weather has been pretty in a better spot. Anyway, I'll say that. It's not bitter cold in a way that would break the sword. So laziness is the main thing. You love your Zombie Tools Felon, Bowie. It seems like there's not a lot of examples of things that Zombie Tools makes that people don't enjoy. It's a bummer. I haven't gotten a chance to play with many of the pieces from their catalog, but they have some pretty gnarly looking things out there. They all look like they'd be fun to swing around. Well, actually, they all don't look like they'd be fun to swing around. In fairness, they look pretty beefy, but I've been surprised by each one that I got to swing around and how it actually felt. And so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that most of them probably actually feel pretty cool in the hand. Mr. J. Stick dollars in my pants and watch me dance. Probably, I don't think that would lose you $1. You're paying me to not dance. Java Man, the My Little Pony Katana will break the internet for sure. I doubt that it will do that, but it will be a fun project. That much it will be. And I've noted before that the My Little Pony Katana, it comes up each time. I gotta find something. I don't think I had a bit out today on a sword, but it did not pan out. I almost had a sword for the My Little Pony Katana. Yeah, don't think it'll break the internet, but more people have expressed interest, or at least some joy in the project, if not interest necessarily in buying a very expensive My Little Pony Katana. But a lot of people have shared that they're interested in My Little Pony, and they're passionate about it, and shared their thoughts with me. And I didn't honestly expect as many people to be interested in both subjects and to have as much crossover as it does. People that are interested in swords and My Little Pony, and so cool. It's been overall a very pleasant project to even think about. It's one that I've talked about more publicly as well, I suppose. But like normally I didn't mention that I was doing the Child of Oren or any of the other projects that I might have put out there. But anyway, a lot of people have shared their thoughts, and it's been very positive, and so I'm looking forward to it. Mr. Fields, this weekend is going. Hope this weekend is going well. Ish. I went to a funeral earlier this weekend, so it's kind of it's tough to come back, but it is not so bad. Still need to get Zatoichi blade. That's right. So Chris Fields might be making some Zatoichi blades, and then I will have another Zatoichi project. Get on it, Chris. You're falling behind. I need Zatoichi blade stat. Alex, whenever the Rainbow Pony Katana project is made, I hope it has glitter and ribbons and everything gaudy. That's kind of the idea, is to put a lot of sparkle in it. I kind of want to go bold. I want to go something that is very clearly a My Little Pony Katana. And that's, anyway, I need to maybe dedicate a specific video to the My Little Pony Katana at this point, and come up with some ideas. It might be one of those, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know, but it will. I am also thinking that it will be a little in your face. All right. Working my way down. Ever see the Todd Cutler and Owen Bush video about a year ago about their pattern welded Viking? Nothing is coming to mind. I think I did. I think I saw one from Todd, but I can't recall the video. Hideous. Temple makes ancient swords, but they're extremely high end and a long wait for that too. Patrick Barta, Temple, the Temple Forge, some of the prettiest things that you can go out there and see in terms of sword out there. They're very beautiful pieces. It's not just that they're expensive. I mean, they're certainly worth it and gorgeous and wonderful works of art. But he's got a pretty lengthy wait list from what I've heard as well. Michael, do you like the wasted hourglass shaped Suka, or sometimes? So interestingly enough, if I hold this up, this doesn't necessarily, it has some slight wasting to it, but not particularly pronounced, but it does have a little bit of a waste down here. The more it has, the more it tends to push into this part of my hand. So as I hold here, and if I push my pinky down, they generally tend to come out to accentuate that on the kashra area here. They tend to be a little more pushy in that area. My Tencho from Motohara has that. And if I squeeze, then it hits me in the fat of my hand and wears me out a little quicker. So I love the way they look. I think they look classy, and absolutely, I think that the shape is nice, but you do have to be wary that it can wear you out a little bit on your hands if they have pointy little swelly areas. It's something to get used to. But yes, I do like it. All right. You got me into the swirlies. That could be taken the wrong way. But yes, I'm assuming you mean the swirly Mitsudomes. They are a awesome theme. One of my favorites. I'm glad you enjoy them as well. TSM, ancient swords are actually a lot like... Actually, a lot of swords were not leaf. They were like a kukri. So kukri machetes are more like modern versions of ancient falcata, kopis, etc. Yeah, there are a number. I don't know much about Celtic swords. I did get to see, I don't know if it was Celtic, but I did get to see a Bronze Age sword, and it was a big leaf blade piece from the Oakshott Institute. They have a 2,000-year-old a bronze sword that's part of the Oakshott Institute's collection, and I got to hold that, and it was pretty neat for an old leaf blade. Very, very heavy, not something that would be fun to swing around. I would, like, 2,000 years ago, it must have been really amazing, cool stuff, but today it felt not particularly like a wonderful sword, which is an odd contrast, actually, because as bronze, it had, I'm sure there's reasons, right? But just as like a modern person's, I pick up the sword and think about using it as a weapon, it did not feel as comfortable. And that's often a contrast, right? So a lot of historical blades in the Oakshot Institute, you pick them up and they feel intrinsically more nimble or agile in the hand than many of the modern counterparts that I get to play with that are similar. The long swords and broadswords and things like that are at least they favor more nimbleness. Now, more educated people, I think even Chris, if he's still here, mentioned that the Oakshot Institutes, I could be misquoting, so I'm sorry if that's the case, Chris, but I think was somebody mentioned anyway that the Oakshot Institute's pieces tend to be a little bit on the lighter side and other collections might be more on the heavy side. So I can't look at just the stuff at the Oakshot Institute and say that that's how all medieval swords felt. But the really, really old bronze sword did not feel very good in my hand, I suppose is what I'm getting at. And it was an old leaf blade one. But anyway, can't even remember what the original question was. I'm still Havoc. I'm still praying Albion will make an Elendril sword for Lord of the Rings for you to buy. Yes. Well, they tend to do license things, so I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of luck there. But you might be able to contact Peter Loyne and see if he'll make you another one. He made the ones in the movies, so and I think he still makes swords. I'm not entirely sure, but you might have some luck there. Hideous Phidias. Do you know of any books or articles that compare and contrast the construction of Japanese sword and pattern welded swords from Europe? No, not particularly eloquent ones that come to mind. I'm sure there are articles about them, but nothing that particularly comes to mind. But there are people that do recreations of pattern welded European swords or Viking swords or at least stuff from that side of the world. And there's demonstrations of how Japanese swords were historically made. And there's a pretty long, at least oral tradition of how they were made. And you can certainly spot some differences in the intention and how they were made and what they were trying to do. But not that necessarily compare them. I don't know. I'd be interested. What would you see compared though? There's a lot from like the typology and what they were trying to do, and I don't know. It's tough to compare them. Anyway. Oh, I'm bad. I'm thinking I see super chat here. So Yang, thank you for the super chat. Hi. Received a set of bamboo katana from Swords of the East on my original intent was to buy the Wind and Thunder. Fitting in quality is up compared to my 2004 Great Wave. Thanks for answering my questions. Last two stream. Yang, you're welcome. I'm glad you got some swords that you like and that they're up to spec. It's a bummer though that if your intent was to buy the Wind and Thunder and you got two bamboo katana instead. That's that's a bummer. I do recall the Wind and Thunder. No, I'm thinking of the Great Wave. I get them conflated. The Wind and Thunder is the big heavy one, and the Great Wave is the one that's a little more nimble and agile in the hand. And they have a bamboo snake, and then they have the bamboo mat katana. You probably got the bamboo mat katana, I'm guessing. And Yang, by the way, I'm handed using the katana. I'm not sure what you mean. Use it one-handed? Anyway, glad you got swords that you like and happy to answer your questions. Super chat is on, by the way. Like, you can use the super chat, and I appreciate it. It's kind, but I'm going to try and read questions. And as you can see, I'm not particularly on the spot with them. So I'm going to try and catch up to chat, though. I'm falling behind. No obligation to use the super chat thing. I will still try to answer your questions. Robert, Lockwood has made some commissioned scabbards for some of my Albions. He does a good job. I've seen some of the Lockwood swords and scabbards. They all look really good. I'm glad you throw that plug in there, Robert, because where to get scabbards is something that I hear quite a bit. Lockwood wouldn't necessarily come to mind off the top of my head. I know that Valiant Armory has done some, and I know there's a few DBK scabbards has done some, but I haven't commissioned them like I have with some other things. So good to know that Lockwood will also do scabbards for other swords. King Benji the Third, which sword in your collection has the power to bless the rains down in Africa? I don't think I have. Well, I do have. Where is it? It's a neat little blade, but I think this is the only African knife that I have, and I think it's African. It's a Tiv dagger, and it's known as like an archer's dagger. So it's got this loop on it, so you can draw your arrows back and still stab if you need to. But neat little things. I'm pretty sure this one is African in origin. Yeah, so this would be the only thing that I have that might bless the rains down in Africa. I think at the moment it's the only African knife that I have, which I also always thought was a cool dagger. So very solid, very solid question. The Tiv dagger is also underrepresented kind of dagger that doesn't come up very much, but still pretty cool, especially if you need to. It's like something you're like, why isn't that in Dungeons and Dragons or something, right? Like you can have an archer and have the dagger and not need to swap your weapons. You got it in your hand. You can stabby stab and shooty shoot at the same time. YouTube punk Anathar. Yes, I'm Anathar. Yeah. I'm thinking though, April Fool's is coming up. I'm due for something funny, and I don't know if it will be time to retire Anathar or if Anathar will return for the third installment, the third chapter, completing the Trinity of Anathar. I don't know how I would do it. So maybe Chris can weld the thing back together so I can break it apart again. I'm not sure. Chris, can you use your NASA skills are you still here? Save me with your NASA and zap Anathar back together so I can smash it apart again for more videos. Havoc, anyone like Samurai Camp Blue anime? I'm lost on anime. Though I am Chris is whispering Anathar too. I'm trying to get more anime type swords to review, mostly because people have asked me to, and it seems interesting. And I'm not personally terribly invested in many animes. I've seen some, but if people are attached to the character and want to have a sword that is from a show, I can totally sympathize with that. So if it helps to test them out so that people can have something functional and know its limits, then I'm keen on doing that. So I don't know anything about the anime or the manga, but Demon Sword is a sword one that I'm trying to get an example of so that I can smash and stuff. So that might happen sometime in the future. All right, how far back on chat am I? And I'm already over time. I said I was going to stop at 9, kept rambling. I will note I will try to get through chat, but I'm not doing a very good job. I'm behind, so I'm going to go a little more briskly, if that's even possible for me, and try to catch up. I recommend you read Vagabond manga, Japanese comic. You won't be disappointed. I'm trying to right now. It sounds like with what Brandon Sanderson is doing, the rest of my life is occupied by his books. So I'm not sure I'm going to have any more fun time to read. I'm working almost done with the Skyward series with Brandon Sanderson, and then I'm not sure exactly what's next, but I have a few of his other books that I want to make it through. But I appreciate the recommendation. Yeah, that bronze blade there is quite heavy. very different from other bronze leaf blades? Chris would know. He's studied some stuff. Okay, yes. This is the weird thing about being behind in chat is like I go off on totally different subjects and then kind of get snapped back. I have to remember what I was actually talking about. Yes, that's correct. Ewart loved the lighter medieval blades in his collection, and his collection shows that they are mostly on the light side of historical pieces overall, which is really important context. Like I'm very fortunate to have access to the Oakshott Institute, and they've been very generous with letting me touch and feel and play with some of their stuff. But it's important to contrast. Like that's the vast majority of my experience handling medieval stuff is from that collection, and so it's helpful to know that favors the lighter side of things because that was the preference of the collector. All right. Scroll down. F Great Art. Good luck having Peter Lloyd remake Elendril. Had to make a limited batch of 10 replicas back in 2010. My best friend was one of the lucky ones who traveled to New Zealand to pick it up for $10,000 total. Fair enough. That's always a question of money, though, right? I imagine you could probably find somebody to make one, but you never know unless you ask. I've seen some other examples of swords similar to the Lord of the Rings examples that have come up for sale secondhand. But anyway, not a surprise. Maybe worth asking if you've got a pile of money burning a hole in your pocket. See a few people noting that it can be a long wait for Lockwood stuff. I think anyone that's making stuff is behind. It seems like there's a lot of people that are interested in swords right now, and everyone is behind. And I'm glad that everyone's keeping busy and that their queues are full and that they are making money and moving stuff. But it seems like everyone has a wait. Steel Air, hello. Recently watched all their live action Rurouni Kenshin. I saw moments of that on the on Netflix, but I haven't. I've been trying to. I haven't seen it. Not really fully. Not the Rurouni Kenshin stuff. I've been watching. What the heck is it? Raised by Wolves, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Me and my wife happen to enjoy that one, and my cousin, who's a bit of a nerd like me, recommended Vox Machina on Amazon, and I've been binging a little bit of that today, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. I did not. I don't usually watch the Critical Role thing. I know about them, and I wish them success in their nerdery, but I haven't followed any of their campaigns. And my friend said, you should watch this cartoon. Go do it right now. And I have been, and I regret nothing. It's been fantastic. Chris, he loves his Wind and Thunder. Inch long. His is an inch longer than the specs and it's head heavier. So that's quite a sword. That's quite a sword. You're swinging around a lamppost, more or less, if it's longer and heavier than what's advertised. Matthew still living. Yes, I'm trying. Chat is moving. Fortunately, like with the chat it's like the edible elephant, right? Like I think I can do it. If it gets too much faster, I'm gonna lose track, and I don't want to make people repeat their questions or anything. So I can still mostly manage. Never seen any follow-up on your Apocalypse Katana. Never seen on the Apocalypse Katana. I've made the same one, but called. See, Larry, I don't know what you mean by Apocalypse Katana. Should I have an Apocalypse Katana? There's an Apocalypse Blade Works Orc Cleaver that I have. I'm trying to think of an Apocalypse Katana. Did I say I was going to make one? I might have. Anyway, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Yang, yes, the bamboo mat katana. They didn't have the Wind and Thunder in stock. Waited a month and a half, but they told me the bamboo mat is in stock. Since I paid them already, I wanted to secure something. Well, I hope you enjoy it. The bamboo mat is one of my favorites. Mine happens to be a heavier example, though, but most people don't like the heavier version. Well, Chris might, apparently. He likes heavy Wind and Thunder ones too. But the bamboo mat piece that I have, I really enjoy. And the other examples were also really nice. So I hope you like it. I think, in contrast, the Wind and Thunder is a big, heavy blade. So if you get those swords and they feel like they're too toothpicky for you, then the Wind and Thunder may be worth investing in again. But bamboo mats, generally speaking, people tend to think they feel nice in the hand. DMD, I got the first gen Paul Chen Golden Oriole with the different old school fittings. Is there a difference in the blade quality? Depending on how old you have it, they could be made out of, I don't know if the Oriole ever got made in railway steel versions, but the newer versions, some of the old ones didn't have bohea on them, from what I recall. But no, I don't think there's a huge difference in I don't think there's a huge difference in the blades. The model, as I recall, was a reasonably short blade, like a 27 or a 28-inch blade, and a really long handle, and the blade was a little bit more on the narrow side. I can't say I particularly liked the feeling of the blade. The handle was a bit on the long side for me, but theoretically, you could do some interesting maneuvering with the sword. And I do like the older looking fittings on it. I thought the contrast of the copper and kind of patinaed black iron area look cool. Yang, so I went with what they had in stock. You're good. I get it. I hope you like the swords, Yang. I believe they call them pre-forged fire swords. DMD, I don't think that. I think the Golden Oriole was a new revision, and Hanway's done that with a few. The Practical has had a revision or two along the way. You can see the really old Subas have like a water jet cutout, blued steel look, and the new ones have it's got like little stipples in it, and it's a little bit more rounded on the edges, and the fittings are different. The Musashi has changed as well. Again, it used to be like an old water jet cutout and have a little stickman looking thing on the scabbard, and that changed as well. So there's a few revisions that have come over the course of time, but I think the fire, I don't know that they changed things after the fire in terms of models exactly. I could be wrong on that. Though around the fire time, there was a gentleman that owned a martial arts supply store that I would frequent, and he would sell Hanway swords from time to time. And he noted that he had a Practical, and he could swear that it had a folded blade like a Bushido, even though it was a Hanway Practical, and he wondered if they were just struggling to get things out the door at the time. So there could be some real oddities floating around in the ether out there from Hanway, with some mix and match stuff going on. I never saw it personally, though, but he was a guy that sold swords for a living, so I imagine he would know what a folded blade would look like. Sealer, I've been waiting on a Hanway Raptor to get in stock, so I just spent the money. Fair enough. Yeah, sword stock has been rough. I have a sneaking suspicion that they ship in, like, they fill the container or something and then ship, because they don't move. At least some of the restocking things seems to move particularly slow in contrast to individual parcel like SF Express stuff. I'm not sure what their production schedule looks like, but it is odd how they get just an enormous amount in stock all at once. It doesn't seem to be smaller batches. Chris, the polearm over the shoulder is a Sabersmith Naginata or Naginata inspired type sword. And I haven't actually practiced with it. The snow has not been great, but I've been meaning to go out and actually do some of the Katori with Naginata, and I haven't done it much. But it's not a great Naginata, I'll tell you right off the bat. Like, the tang doesn't seem long enough, and I haven't played with it much, but I'm not expecting a whole lot. I will get to reviewing it eventually, but I want summer months and a little bit more practice before I do. Havoc, the purchase of real katana from Japan itself, and those are not cheap. I lost what you must have been saying first. But yes, like something from Japan, probably not cheap. Anathar, welding can do. That's fine. Anathar, if somebody welded Anathar together so I could smash it again, I could see something funny. I could see a funny video if Anathar got sent away. You would have to do some video so I could make something funny out of it. But just super shitty welding too. Like I was thinking if I made a third part of Anathar, like I'd have to staple it together or something. I don't know. But welding it might go a little bit further. All right. Moving down a little bit. Am I catching up with chat? Kind of. Nico, cheers. Hello from Minnesota, Nico. What's the katana that has endured the hardest tests? The katanas that have endured the hardest tests. That's a reasonable question. Metal Korax. The ones that stand out in my mind is holding up better. First, the Ronin Dojo Pro, I can't remember which one. Might have been their O-Katana, but a big Ronin Dojo Pro, those 1060 blades have held up really, really well to a lot of the testing, though I have not tested one of them in the current way that I test them. But when I was testing the Ronin Dojo Pros, they were a real bitch to break and gave me the most trouble out of anything with the methods that I used at the time. Lately, there was a sword from Beiser that was made out of S7, and that was real sumbitch to break as well. And those two stand out in my mind as some of the hardest and most challenging to break. The other ones might surprise you, like if I think to just a $50 Musashi katana, just a soft 1045 steel. It didn't break really, as I had to fold it back and forth to fatigue the metal to break it. It deformed, it lost all its edge, and it was kind of a more of a serrated stick by the time it was, but it still wouldn't break. It still didn't shear in half very easily because the metal was soft and it would bend before it would break, but it also didn't hold an edge. So the balance and the ones that held an edge and held their shape and were functional weapons kind of up into the end, those two things stand out in my mind as ones that have held up at least noticeably better. I don't know if I could say measurably better because I don't really have any scientific methodology behind what I'm doing, but they've held up pretty well. Gods of Gaming, what's your main job that can allow you to purchase all of these katana? I manage a supply chain by day. So I have a full-time job doing math and supply chainy stuff, which is why I ramble Gods of Gaming around supply chainy stuff and boxes and cardboard and wrapping and things like that, because it's of interest to me in my day-to-day life. But yes, it's also worth noting that this gives you the perception that I am a perhaps more grandeur person than I am in the real world. Swords are my main hobby, and being a nerd with computer games and stuff. So I don't. My discretionary income is largely pushed into this hobby. I don't live in a mansion. So isn't that right, Giles? Giles is my butler, of course. No, I don't. Anyway, yes, I'm blessed. I'm not complaining, but I do want to note that like this looks a little crazy, and it is, But I also sell them and move them around, so it sometimes looks more grandeur than it is. Also, some of them are not mine. That's the other thing to note, is that some of them are on loan for review, or that they are samples or something like that. So it's anyway. But yes, I have a job where I do supply chainy stuff. Super chat. Thank you, Steelio. The Ronin Black Blade, mine is called the Kill Bill, but yours was the Apocalypse. That's right. Okay. Hopefully you didn't send a super chat to get my attention, because I'm sorry if I missed that earlier. Yes, they did change the name or something like that about it. That is one example of something that has a quasi-Tachi-esque theme around it, with the Ito wrapped on the scabbard. I haven't done much else with it. I did the review, but that and the Crom Killer one were sent to me from Ronin not to break. So they've sent a few of them with kind of specific instructions not to break, but those weren't for reviews. Some time ago, I don't know if it was their 10th anniversary or something like that, but it was sent to me and a few other reviewers as a thank you for doing review stuff, and they did some public stuff. So they sent a couple examples out, not to break though. So I haven't done much else. I have it up there, and I enjoy it. It's actually a nice feeling sword too. It's got a unique looking blade. And I was actually surprised. I thought it would be kind of, anytime I see the like black, or I don't know, the gimmicky stuff, I always assume that it's going to be followed by something stupid feeling. But the blade actually feels nice, and it's not a bad one to swing around. F grade art. The Golden Oriole was, the old Golden Oriole was beautiful. I liked it more. My Apocalypse are $3,500 Dynasty Forge katanas. Would you? Dynasty would still be free. Yeah, well, hopefully not. Hopefully you wouldn't mind breaking out the good stuff if your life depended on it. All right. Joshua Lowe, thank you for the super chat. I missed the review on You Have Not. If not, please review. You talked me into buying the first sword, my first sword, the Archduke, which I ordered last week. Well, congratulations. You have not missed the review on the Maximilian. It is just, it falls behind things. So I will get to it. It is a highly requested sword. Skallagrim, I've been reluctant to review it, frankly, because other people have talked about it, and it seems like a sword that has received attention from people more scholarly on the subject of those types of swords than I am. So that's why I haven't done it. I've been meaning to. I like it, but honestly, I like the Tyrolean, the other one that I have a little bit more. But I will review it. Thank you for the super chat. You did not miss it. It's not a bad sword by any means, but the extra detail and cost that goes into the fittings, in contrast to the Braveheart looking one. I can't remember. I don't know how to say the name. It comes to my mind as Tyrolean or something, but I'm dyslexic, so I might be reading it. I'm probably just saying it wrong. Anyway, I like the doorknob on the bottom. When I'm moving around that big piece, it's the doorknob on the bottom doesn't hurt my hand as much. The other big ball is hard to get a hold of with my other hand. If you grip the pommel, that might be something worth considering. I think the Archduke has a wheel pommel. Could be wrong on that. The Maximilian, though, it's not uncomfortable. It doesn't bite me. I just like the doorknob on the other one. The grip on the Tyrolean, the Braveheart looking one, is a little bit chunky though, so it's even tough for me to get my hand around. It's just a hair too big, but the doorknob is actually pretty comfortable, and I enjoy moving it. And they're very similar in other ways. So if I had to keep one, it would probably be that one, or order one, it would probably be the Bravehearty one. But that's just because, like, the Maximilian is less handleable and more expensive, and I admit the doorknob might not be the best pommel because it reminds you of a doorknob. If swinging around is what I want to do with them, then I prefer the comfort. All right, I'm almost caught up with stuff. I'm pretty sure that is my wife texting me to come to bed, because I said I would stop an hour ago and I haven't. So I'm gonna I'm going to try and make it through the rest of the questions that are out right now. Buford Evans, you snuck one in there. I'm going to read to there, and then I'm gonna call it for the night. So let's see what else we got. Ronin blades are awesome. Garland, you caught the live stream. Yes, I'm glad you did. I probably owe a early morning stream or something at some point now. So the folks on a different time schedule can catch me. I keep doing before bedtime streams because that's when I guess when I have time is right before bed. You're welcome, Metal. I'm glad you enjoy the videos. Gods of Gaming, thanks. You're welcome for the answer. Hopefully when people join the stream and enter questions into chat with no plan of what else to do, they actually answer questions. I find it surprising that so many people are thankful for answering a question. I'm glad you asked them because it gave me something to talk about. If people weren't asking questions here, I would not ramble on for the better part of 2 hours. So thank you for asking the questions. Buford, what up? You caught me right before we end. F grade art. I have over 30 swords, a lot of guns, and I'm poor as fuck. People ask how I can afford stuff, but they don't see my bank account. Yes, guns are less. Guns are also an expensive hobby, especially if you want to use them. The Tommy mats, granted, are $10, so it's not much less expensive. I figure if I want to go like shoot 308 or something like that, it's $2 or $3 a bullet at this point. It's been so long since I bought ammo now. I stocked up at Fleet Farm before it went absolutely nuts, and I've been able to maintain that with just periodically going in and maintaining some proficiency with my daily carry. Support the Brotherhood. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Steel Air. Buford Evan, what's the general consensus on Ronin Katana brand? I'm pondering Viking stuff. I don't know what the general consensus is, honestly. I know what mine was. The Viking piece had kind of a wrist killer of a handle, and it's been a long time since I've tested that sword or had it in my hand, so I could be completely off at this point. But it was a bit of a wrist killer, and the handle was a little bit too long. So at the time, I don't know that I would have really picked up on it because I've had a few other swords like that since then. And the handles are meant to be really short to sandwich. Well, there's a reason that they're short. And if they are short, they're less murderous. But I always find Viking swords somewhat uncomfortable in my hand, really, regardless of what I do. They never feel as intuitive as other pieces do. So with the handle being longer, it just kind of hammers your wrist a little bit. And I don't know if that's changed in their models. I haven't really revisited looking at their Viking swords, but it was very durable. It took a beating, that's for sure. And the other swords have been of quality, but I would say if you're looking at the Viking swords from Ronin Katana, I'd be somewhat concerned about the size of the handle. In retrospect, that would be the only thing that would be a real something that I probably should have noted, but I didn't know any better at the time. And the handles need to be short to sandwich your hands. Otherwise, it can be further impeded by, it could be further made less usable. So that is all I can really think of. Otherwise, some people like Ronin Katana, some don't. And there's a lot of opinions out there. Some people have all sorts of misgivings, valid and not. And the common complaints that I see are the Ito comes undone, or can be a little bit on the loose side. At least I think that's about it, the most common one. Anyway, I'm sure there's other complaints and other people have had other concerns, and I don't want to dismiss those. But as I look at like what's the most common thing, there's a lot of little nuanced things, but they're not particularly expensive swords. They tend to be a little bit on the heavier side, and the Ito can come undone. The contrast that I think of when I think of Ronin Katanas in that light, the $350 can get you a lot more features, frankly, from Ryan's sword, right? You can get a laminated and folded and all that stuff from another company, but the Ronin stuff has held up really, really well. So durability, the Dojo Pro is supposed to be a reliable dojo beater, so to speak, and I think they do that well. They've been very durable. The Ito hasn't, in my experience, come undone particularly quickly, but I'm testing it over a short period of time, and I haven't used one over years and seen how quickly the Ito has come undone. But that also is a problem with a number of pieces. So that is the other aspect to it, that Ito can come undone, and not being particularly tight is a bit of a common theme, and it's Huawei, Skydrow. Those are two examples of swords that have had a little bit tighter Ito, but it's a common challenge across swords. So anyway, I would say generally they hold up really well, and if people are looking for something to reliably smash things with, and durability is favored on a budget, that the Dojo Pro tends to be worthy of consideration. Havoc, my inheritance afforded me to buy the swords I have. I will always take care of them for that reason. Well, I hope you do. I know I abuse swords, but I'm hopefully not advocating. Hopefully there's not a following of people that are bashing steel rods in their backyard because I made it cool for some reason. The whole idea is that the abuse lets you know how far something can be pushed, so that you don't have to learn the same lessons with your property. I bought the Musashi bamboo fast cutter, and it's not bad. I like it. Double bow. He looks good. Steel air. Yeah, I can't remember what the name of that is. Like food something that starts with an F. The double bow. This white thing behind me from Romance of Men. This one. There we go. It's at the bottom rack. That has one of those double bow things on it, and that sword is not doesn't have a particularly high grade polish. Doesn't do a lot of features. It's a budget piece. But even on those pieces, I think it also is very handsome. I like it because it's just not particularly common. It's not something you see in every sword that has a bohie. So I agree that it's zazzy. All right. Chris Fields, hey, if others have done more scholarly reviews of a certain piece, then drunk reviews are on the table. That is fair. That is a fair point, Chris. I think you found where I could add value to the conversation. I just need to be drunk. So for a guy that's trying to cut it back, having made some drunken reviews is definitely an excuse to keep perpetuating my alcoholism. That's all right, Buford. I think you were the last one, and we'll call it here. But I see some more stuff came up, so maybe not. Maybe I'll break my word here. Where's a good place to get decent fittings? Seems like there aren't any middle of the road options. It's elite, either cheap or ridiculous expensive. So Hyper Cafe is one. It depends on what you mean by expensive. They all tend to be a little bit expensive. For a little dab of metal, a cheap Fuchi is $50 just for the piece. If you buy it on eBay as a single piece, and that's kind of a good price. So if you pay, Roman Urban had one up for sale earlier for $300, made out of Shakudo, I think, just for the Fuchi, just for that one piece, and that was a great deal. So it depends on what you want. What you're after and what's expensive. But sometimes you can take a look on Sword Buyer's Guide or some other forum and find somebody that's done a project and pulled the fittings off their sword and are selling them relatively inexpensively. That's one way. Yamato Budogu and Tazando and Seki, I'm probably saying that wrong. There's a few Japanese shops that have very similar koshirai that are put on Iaito and things like that, and they're okay. Loman's another one. Sophie Coke on eBay is got some interesting fittings. I haven't seen any examples yet. I actually reached out and asked for some, and supposedly I might get some, but who knows? But that's another option. Some of them look very interesting, but I haven't seen them. Those are really what come to mind, though. I don't know of a place that has particularly inexpensive, at the same time, high quality stuff. And what's odd is that they're not particularly challenging to make, from my understanding. I don't, at least on a very simple level, if you just wanted like copper or iron and durable and handmade, but not engraved or cast or anything, that those aren't the most challenging things to make, at least to shape out. If you want high artistry in them, then obviously it can be very painstaking, time consuming. But yeah, I don't think anyone has quite captured the market on making cheap, affordable fittings. So if you have skill, there's an open door there, because I'm reasonably sure that if you could just hammer, if you had a standard shape that could be pressed out or something like that, but it was durable and good and well formed and shaped, that there'd be a reasonable amount of people out there looking for decent fittings. All right. Well, that was the last question, but I do see a couple more came in, and most of them were thanks. So I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone sticking around. Ryan R., thanks for the super chat. Much appreciated. And most people saying thanks. So I appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for sticking around. It's surprisingly fun. Every time I come on here, there's a good showing of people that come up and keep the conversation going, or at least fuel me with enough stuff to keep blabbering on. I hope it's interesting. I hope it's fun. It certainly is for me. And my wife might be stamping on the ceiling now. So it is definitely, I think I've exceeded my time to go to ramble here. But again, thank you for coming in. I'll keep doing these, especially if I don't have a video to put out during the week. It's a way to pop on and say hello, and at least be more consistent. I'll close out with some stuff. I do have things in the works. I'm working on the other example from Swordby. I have the monster Kriegsmesser thing from Sword for Neon, the last one. I'm going to finally wrap it up. Romance of Men is sending another sword to test out that hopefully addresses some of the feedback I gave them. Skydrow sent me a review sample that I have to work through, and that is most of what I've got in the pipeline. So you'll see hopefully some of those videos coming up, and hopefully I can also find some other random stuff to blab about in between then. Anyway, that's what I've got. Thanks everyone for tuning in again. Much appreciated. Cheers, and thanks for watching.